Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low-light situations, just look for this orange box over on FroKnowsPhoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I'll send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a preview of a new Sony camera. Finally, we have a new Sony camera, and this time it is the FX30. Now, if you're wondering what's the difference between the FX30 and the FX3 that has been out for a little while, it is the zero, because they added a zero. Actually, this is considered the baby brother to the FX3, which is a full-frame camera. This one is going to be a cropped sensor camera, but we will get to the details and specs as we move along. Now, we are filming with the FX30 right now on this camera right here. And then we also have the A7 IV right here on this angle because we wanted to put them side by side as we think that these two cameras might be the two options you may be looking for if you're trying to decide which Sony camera to go with, whether it's this one or that one, or maybe it's the ZV-E10. We'll talk more about that by the end of this video. Now, we are filming in S-Log3, which is going to give you the more cinematic look because that is where Sony is positioning this camera. They're saying that it is a cinema camera. I mean, it actually is a cinema camera because it looks just like the FX3 because it's in the same exact body as the FX3. Now, Sony is saying this is the way to bridge the gap between the more expensive FX3 and other cinema cameras and have another option for new content creators, vloggers, TikTokers. Basically, they're saying it's a camera for a new type of creator or a future creator, and they're pricing it in a point where they're saying that a new creator could afford. Now, this is all subjective, of course. Cinema is subjective because if you don't know what you're doing with your camera, it doesn't matter how good the camera is, whether it says cinema on it or it says iPhone on it. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't have good glass, you don't understand angles, lighting, and all of the things that you need to understand as well as editing, it might not matter. But in this video, I'm giving you a preview look so you can decide, is it right for you or is it not right for you? Another thing Sony pushed with this camera is they're saying that it's for people that want that cinematic look. And I know I just said that if you don't know what you're doing, it really doesn't matter whether you have a cinematic look or not. But because we know what we're doing here in the studio, we will say that the cinematic look of this camera is really nice. At least when we look at it on our Apple Pros on the nice Retina display, it looks incredible. And you also have to remember when you upload it to something like YouTube, it's getting compressed. You compress it once when you export it, and it gets compressed again when YouTube goes ahead and processes it. So you're not exactly seeing the same thing that we see. But what we see is some really nice color with that S-Log3 when you go ahead and you process it. So some of the other camera options out there that might be something that a new creator would look at would be an A7C, possibly because it's going to be the same price as this camera. You've got an A7 IV and maybe even the Canon R7. Those are all cameras that are going to be similarly priced or within the same vicinity that people might be considering. One might be more of a hybrid camera because it does stills and it really does stills and it does video, or something like this, which is primarily focused on video. So let's talk about the body design. The body design is the exact same as the FX3 all the way around. It weighs in at 1.42 pounds or 646 grams. It has a built-in cooling fan and it has a heat dissipating design as well as unlimited record time. We're seeing that more and more, but especially in cinema cameras, having a built-in fan, having the heat dissipating design and unlimited record time is a big deal. I do want to say that we are relying on the real-time IAF in both of these cameras, so if it goes out or misses, you'll see it go out or miss because we're letting the camera do what it's supposed to do, which is track the eye at this point. We have the camera set to the same settings, but keep in mind, this one over here is full frame using a 50mm 1.2 Sony, and this one over here is from a cropped sensor, which is using the 35 1.4, and we're shooting both of them at 1.4, trying to get them as close as possible, though understand you can't get them exactly in the same area, especially if one is here and one is there, the angle is going to be off ever so slightly. The FX30 is a multi-thread body with quarter 20 threads. It's just like the FX3. That means you don't have to get another cage because you can just screw stuff right into it. Now there's a new main menu with a tile display, which is meant to mimic more of the Pro camera's menu system, something like you would find in the Sony Venice or the FX9 and other menus like that. It's essentially a quick menu. Now, there is no EVF here, there's just a flip out and rotatable screen, but being that it's more of a cinematic camera, a lot of people that are going to be shooting with this are going to have external displays. Now, for beginners out there, remember that if you are just starting out, you might have to spend more money on an external display versus having an EVF built in, which is something that someone else may want to use if they're running and gunning. But if you don't, you're gonna have to spend more money, not to mention you still need to add glass to your body. So if you're a newbie and you're thinking about this camera, just understand quality glass, glass, the better the lens, that's certainly gonna help you out more so than a crappier piece of glass. All right, so you do have a flip out and rotatable screen on this, and what's cool on the FX30 is that you do not have any interference with your user interface, meaning the settings don't get in the way of your display like it does with the A7 IV. So some people may not like seeing the histogram or other information on the screen because it just gets in the way. In this case, it does not get in the way. To go along with the flip out and rotatable screen, you have other features that you know are going to be in this camera, but I have to tell you about it anyway. You have a microphone input, you've got a headphone output, digital hot shoe, and that digital hot shoe is where you plug in the optional XLR handle. There's a full HDMI port as well as USB-C. There are tally lights all the way around this camera. Hi guys, I'm Tally. You got a tally light in the front, you got it on the back, you got it in the side, and you have it around the screen as well. Finally, let's get to these specs right now. We've got a new 26 megapixel BSI APS-C XMR-R sensor that's powered by a Bionz XR processor. So basically you're getting a 20.1 megapixel sensor because you're getting 16:9 aspect ratio all the time. There's a dual base ISO of 800 as well as 2500, and there's a setting called Cine EI Quick, which basically lets the camera decide on which is the right base ISO to go with. Now on to AF points. You have 495 autofocusing points that are covering 90% of the frame. You have real-time IAF, which we are using right now. It's basically the same thing that you find in the A7 IV as well. Look, it's real-time IF. I mean, I don't even know why I'm trying to move. We know that they all work really good right now. You can record in 10-bit 422 4K video, which is oversampled from 6K up to 60p with no pixel binning. Now, you will notice a 1.04 times crop, which is pretty small. That's why this one, the FX30, looks like it's a little closer to me than the A7 IV. You could shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second, but there is a caveat with this. It is a 1.6x crop, where it's cropping down to the center, giving you a 1:1 readout. For those who want to shoot ultra slow motion, you can do that at 1080 up to 240 frames per second. Now, there's S-Cinetone as well as S-Log3. You get up to 14 stops of dynamic range. Now, there's 3 S-Log shooting modes. You've got Flexible ISO, Cine Exposure Index, and Cine EI Quick. And those last 2 modes are only found in higher-end cinema cameras, so you're getting that in this one so that you can match it to those higher-end cameras. Let me cut in here real quick because I want to show you FroPak 3 in action on this photo right here taken with a Sony. And for those of you who do a lot of video and do Luts, these are like Luts for photos. So let's start with Fifth Element. That looks great, followed by Almost Famous, Canadian Tuxedo, Eckert, King Contrast, Mount Airy, and Walter White. But check it out on this photo right here with something called Skittles from FroPak 1. And boom, without, with. It looks absolutely incredible. So look, if you're looking to give yourself a great starting point or speed up your raw workflow both on the desktop or on your mobile phone, we created 15 custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPak3. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, They're currently on sale. Or if you want to save even more and get Skittles as part of FroPack 1, you can get the Triple Play Bundle, which includes FroPack 1, 2, and 3. Now, let's get back to the video. All right, moving on, we've got a big feature that Sony is pushing, which is that you have new picture profile LUTs with custom assignable user imported LUTs. Now what this means is you have two options. One, it is you could have your LUTs on for monitoring, or you could have your LUTs burnt right into your images. Basically, it's like having presets that we use for our still images burnt right into the files inside the camera. Now, when it comes to storing the data that you're recording, you have dual CF Express A slots. Now that gives you redundant recording options. You could also use SD cards, which are reverse compatible, but if you want the fastest of fast cards, I highly recommend you get those CF Express Type A cards. But again, if you're somebody new to this industry, you may not know what a CF Express Type A card is, and you may be thrown off by the smaller size of those as well as the larger expense. So just because you can buy a cinema camera doesn't mean it ends right there, and that's why I'm hesitant to say that this is for those TikTokers or those new beginner creators, and maybe the ZV-E10 might be a better starting point. Or if they can afford it and you get this, I guess you can get it, you're just gonna have a learning curve. Now the FX30 has a few video features that it borrows from the A7 IV, like focus mapping as well as breathing compensation. You also have 5-axis optical steady shot with active mode. Now there is a new Catalyst plugin for Premiere Pro, which utilizes active mode gyro info, which gives you more flexibility when you wanna stabilize in post. You also don't have to use a standalone program anymore when you can just use the Premiere plugin. Speaking of the plugin, this is good because the metadata has baked in information right into the file that you can use in the Premiere Pro plugin, like breathing compensation, stabilization data, rotation metadata, as well as LUT info. Now I know I've alluded to the price a few times, but here it is. It's $1,800 for the body only. It's $2,200 with the XLR handle and will be available in October. But we have to put it next to, say, the A7C, which is $1,800. Is that a better option for you? I mean, if you're looking to just do straight up video, I'd probably say this is a heck of a lot better option because it's 2.5+ years newer than that. But if you're looking to do a hybrid of stills and video, I don't even know if I'd recommend the A7C at this point, but that's for you guys to decide. Next, we have the A7 IV, which we're recording with right here. That's a full frame camera that's $2,500. But it's more of a hybrid style camera, meaning you're gonna get stills, you're gonna get video, and you can get the video pretty close to similar from the A7 IV as you can with the FX30. Just know that the FX30 is gonna be a little less expensive, but if you're a creator who also does stills, then the FX30 may not be for you. And then on the Canon front, you have the R7, which is $1,500. So those are the options you have out there, and you have to decide, is this overkill? It's kind of interesting that Sony came out with a camera like this, because I don't know that it's really for those new shooters, those new content creators. I get that Sony wants to say that it's for the future creators, but a lot of times you just need to start somewhere. And at $1,800, this is not a bad option, but that's body only. There's a lot of extra things you need to add to it. Microphones, monitors, lenses, memory cards, batteries. It all adds up. And sometimes the best thing for a new creator is to just start with something basic. A ZV-E10, even an M50 Mark II from Canon, just the basics. But we do see this as a good option for someone who needs a B-roll camera, a C camera, people that are already in the cinema universe who want something a little less expensive that they can take around with them, because this is gonna give them a lot of the same features that they're used to in a smaller, less expensive package. And the files look really good out of it. Now, this isn't the camera that I was personally hoping to see, but I'm not a cinemaphile, I'm not a cinema shooter. This is something that I would like to see what Gerald Undone has to say about, but he does more of the testing of the cine stuff. But at the end of the day, the files look really nice. We're happy with the colors that we got out of it. What do you guys think about it? How does it look to you on YouTube? Let us know down below. Would this be something that you would purchase? Or would you rather have a camera that's gonna give you the stills capability as well as the video? So, thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.